I ran Opus 5, Sonnet 5, and Fable 5 through 5 head-to-head tests and kept score, comparing Claude Opus 5 and Claude Sonnet 5. Coding and reasoning, price per million tokens, output efficiency, instruction following, and agent speed, 5 categories, 1 running scoreboard, no favorites. The cheapest model of the 3 ends up winning more than you'd expect, and the most expensive one loses a round it really shouldn't. Test 1, reasoning and coding benchmarks. Pick the wrong model for real coding work and you pay for it in retries and broken pull requests. Opus 5 launched on July 24, 2026, and it leads here by a wide margin. It scored 96% on SWE Bench Verified, essentially topping the industry's standard coding benchmark. On the tougher ARC-AGI-3 reasoning test, Opus 5 sits at roughly 3 times the next best published score. There's a wrinkle though. On the harder SWE Bench Pro variant, Opus 5 comes in third, behind Fable 5 and the newer Mythos 5 model, and that gap is under a single point. Calling that a loss would be misleading. If you write code or build agents for a living, this test matters more than any other one here, and Opus 5 wins it. That puts Opus 5 at 1, Sonnet 5 at 0, and Fable 5 at 0. My name is Brian, and I spend most of my week digging through AI products, benchmarks, APIs, and pricing pages to figure out where these tools actually differ. If you've used all 3 of these yourself, drop a comment on which one has actually been the most consistent for you. Real workflows expose things a benchmark never will, and the next test is where the price tags stop matching the results. Test 2, cost per million tokens. Guess wrong on pricing tier, and you're not just a little off, you're overpaying every single month at scale. Sonnet 5 runs $2 per million input tokens and $10 per million output, straight from Anthropic's own pricing page and not a second-hand estimate. That undercuts both of the others. Opus 5 runs $5 input and $25 output, and Fable 5 runs $10 input and $50 output. Sonnet 5 wins this round, and it isn't close. That introductory price became Anthropic's permanent rate in August of 2026, so it isn't a discount that disappears later. Fable 5's output price is 5 times Sonnet 5's, and that matters the moment you're generating long responses instead of short ones. One of the biggest problems I run into when using AI agents is turning their output into YouTube content I can actually use to market my product. That's why this video is sponsored by Subscriber, a tool that helps business owners connect their AI agents to YouTube and market their products without spending 10 hours every week creating content. You can connect Claude or ChatGPT directly to Subscriber. It then analyzes your business, website, and YouTube channel to help you create SEO-optimized video ideas, scripts, thumbnails, and even complete videos that actually match your brand. What I like most is that every week, Subscriber gives me a list of high-potential video ideas I can immediately execute, and it can even help edit videos for me, with or without my face, including videos like the one you're watching right now. It's easy to get started, and you can try Subscriber for free using the link in the description below. Now back to the video. A handful of one-off requests barely feels it, but running these models hundreds of times a day turns that 5 times gap into a real line item. That puts Opus 5 at 1, Sonnet 5 at 1, and Fable 5 at 0. But a cheap price doesn't mean much if the model needs extra tokens to say the same thing, and that changes the math again. Test 3, output verbosity and token efficiency. A cheap price per token doesn't help you if a model needs 3 times as many tokens to say the same thing. It matters most when you're generating something long in a single shot. There's also a claim going around that Sonnet 5 produces noticeably more output for a similar task, something like a third more. That comes from a single uncited source and I couldn't confirm it anywhere, so I'm not going to score Sonnet 5 down on a number I can't stand behind. What I can score is the confirmed output ceiling, and that goes to Fable 5. If your agents occasionally need to write something very long in one shot, that ceiling is the real advantage. Opus 5, Sonnet 5, and Fable 5 are now tied at 1 apiece. None of that pricing or ceiling math matters, though, if the model won't actually do what you tell it to do. Fable 5 supports up to 128,000 output tokens per request confirmed directly, and that's the biggest ceiling of the 3. Stick with me because the last 4 tests are where this decision actually flips. Test 4, instruction following and personality stability. A model that argues with your instructions or drifts in tone halfway through a project derails a real workflow fast, no matter how good its benchmark scores look. Looking for evidence on this one turned up almost nothing solid. The only claim on the table is a single, uncited note saying Opus 5 pushes back on instructions and feels less stable than earlier Claude versions. Searching for anything backing that up, current discussion threads included, turned up nothing that corroborated it. That's not proof it's false, but it's not proof either. So I'm not handing Opus 5 a loss on an unconfirmed complaint. I also found no reliable source flagging consistency problems with Sonnet 5 or Fable 5. So this round is a hedge. Sonnet 5 and Fable 5 both get a point for steady ground, and Opus 5 sits this one out instead of getting penalized on a rumor. That puts Opus 5 at 1, Sonnet 5 at 2, and Fable 5 at 2. That leaves one test left, and it's the one that actually decides things for anyone running real agent work. Test 5, Agentic Task Completion and Speed. For agent work, raw capability and speed both decide whether a pipeline is actually usable at scale, not just impressive in a demo. Opus 5 wins the capability half of this test outright. It leads Frontier Bench, Anthropic's own agentic coding evaluation, ahead of Fable 5 and every other model reported alongside it. On speed, Sonnet 5 is positioned for high-volume, real-time agent work since it's faster and cheaper per token. Opus 5's fast mode doubles the price for roughly 2.5 times the speed. One more claim floats around that Fable 5 is the fastest of the three, but nothing backs it up. That also runs against the usual pattern of the biggest flagship model being the slower one, so I'm leaving it out. Opus 5 takes this round on confirmed agentic performance. Opus 5, Sonnet 5, and Fable 5 are now tied at 2 apiece, dead even after all 5 tests. Opus 5 won reasoning, coding, and agentic performance, and that's the category that should matter most if your work is heavy coding or agent pipelines. Its weakness is sitting in the middle of the price ladder without owning the cheapest tier or the biggest ceiling. Sonnet 5 won cost outright and tied on stability, which makes it the best value to capability ratio of the three. Its open question is that unconfirmed verbosity claim, one worth watching rather than worrying about. Fable 5 won the output ceiling test and tied on stability, but it's the most expensive model here by a wide margin. That gap is only worth paying for specific, long-horizon work. For the most raw capability in heavy coding or serious agent pipelines, Opus 5 is your default. It wins both tests outright, and the price difference is easy to justify at that level. If you're a developer, a creator, or anyone running these models often and watching the bill, choose Sonnet 5 first. It closes most of the gap to the higher tiers, in Anthropic's own words, at a fraction of the cost. If you specifically need the largest context and output ceiling for long, single-shot generations, Fable 5 is your lane and nowhere else. If someone handed me zero context and asked which one to start with, I'd choose Sonnet 5. The decisive reason is that it gets close enough on real capability while giving up far less on cost than the other two. One thing nobody talks about is that the SWE bench and Frontier bench percentages in this video are independently reported by Tech Press, not pulled straight from Anthropic's own model card. Treat the exact decimal points as directional rather than gospel. Pricing is the one category confirmed directly from Anthropic's own docs, so that's the number to trust most when budgeting for any of these three models. If you're trying to decide between the two models closest in price, the next video breaks down Sonnet 5 against Opus 4.8, specifically for agentic workflows. That's the pairing most people stuck between mid-tier options actually need to see next.